We only have peace in our lives when we embrace who we are fully and love who we are, from the top of our heads all the way to the bottom of our feet. But when you're Virgo, because of your obsession with perfectionism, you have to take into account like what the populace considers acceptable and make decisions from there, which is very difficult. If there's one thing I wish I could teach Virgos is to not give a shit so much. They give too much of a shit, about other people and about what people think. They claim they don't, but they do. Because if they didn't, why would they care so much about being perfect? Because who they are is already perfect. You're perfect because you are. You're perfect because there's only one you. You're perfect because you were already made perfect. And nobody's life is perfect. Like whatever you think perfection is, it doesn't exist. It's like a figment of your imagination. And the deeper into that hole you go, the more in captivity you're going to feel, the more like a machine you're going to feel. And what happens is when you start living this life where you separate your head from your heart and become somebody who's then obsessed with, being productive and doing the right things and being approved of by others, it's easy then to live a lie. It's easy to live a very unfulfilling lie that and a very unfulfilling life rather, that is consumed with like being pleasing, as opposed to living a fruitful, emotionally fulfilling life that is consumed with making sure we're doing things that feel good, which is really what emotional fulfillment is about. It's not about others and their perception of their perception of your perfection, but rather it's about what makes me feel me. What makes me feel fulfilled? What makes me feel true? And Virgo does not know what makes them feel them and what makes them feel true. They have to work at it because they're trying to pay bills, they're trying to survive, and they just want to do all the things like a young, mature adult that cannot fail at lunching and being independent. So that's pretty much it, like in terms of like Virgo energy. So when you end up putting that at the 4th house, you're going to get parents that were in the military or parents that were super religious. And the reason why I bring those two up as examples is because both those upbringings have one thing in common. What similarities do you think children that grew up in the military have with children that grew up in super religious homes? Domineering, demanding parent who is not very flexible, a childhood that was very rule bound, and that was very much so obsessed with impressing others as opposed to like being real and feeling good about where we are. So you get people that are hardworking, you get people that are dependable, you get people that received all the basic things that they needed to make their life work because their parents taught them about the importance of cleanliness, the importance of order, of following a structure, of listening to authority and being respectful towards authority, because that's the other thing. Virgo 4th house kids grew up with parents that were very domineering and controlling. These parents are parents that do not allow their children to think for themselves, and they're overly invested in their children's lives. Even when their children become adults, they don't respect their children as adults. They have a hard time allowing their children to have opinions of their own, especially if those opinions conflict with the opinions that they have. So these are families where there isn't a lot of acceptance. There isn't a lot of like love outside of performance, because what happens is that these kids learn to perform for the parents' affection. So deep down, they never really truly feel worthy of love. They always feel like love is something they have to work for. Love is something they have to earn because, it was withdrawn from them whenever they would choose to assert themselves, whenever they would choose to, be an independent individual who made their own decisions. These parents were never supportive of that. So these children learn very early on that to survive in this environment, I need to kill the part of me that is authentic, that is honest, that is real, and then I just need to follow the script. So the script is you do what society deems acceptable, and if society does not deem whatever you're doing acceptable, then that's not what you do. But here's the thing, there are lots of things society does not deem acceptable that are totally acceptable. If that child is gay, that child is gay. That child is not going to not be gay because the parent does not find that to be acceptable. Like, gay people don't just wake up and go, oh, I'm going to be gay today and tomorrow I'm going to be straight. Like, that's not how it works. Have you ever tried to make a straight person think they're gay? If you're a heterosexual person, do you think somebody can make you into a gay person? Do you think somebody can make you into a homosexual? Do you think you could wake up the next day and be like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna be a homosexual now. People are saying no. And the reason for that is because you cannot fake sexuality, because sexuality is biology. Yeah, somebody said hell no. It's the same thing, because sexuality is biology, right? Like, what gets you off is what gets you off. We all have things that get us off, and these aren't things we can force. You know, sometimes you even meet people and you like them, and you find them, like, attractive physically, but then, like, they start talking to you, and you're just like, oh. Or you smell them, and you're like, oh. Or you smell their breath, and oh, you see their teeth, and oh. You know? Or it's the way it's the volume at which they speak, or it's the things they talk about, it's the way they move. And then, like, let's say, like, it's all good. It was like a romance type situation, and then you started making out. And the way they kiss, you're just like, oh, does anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like everything is there, but you just don't feel it. And that it is like the vibe, right? It's like the sexual chemistry. It's like the stuff you cannot fake, right? It's the stuff you can't pretend to have. Even when it sounds like on paper you should have it, you just don't have it. It's kind of like that with being gay. It's like, even though on paper, you know, society says you're supposed to like this gender. Like, girls are supposed to like boys. Boys are supposed to like girls. That's what society says. But then when you're a boy who's gay or a girl who's gay, you go out with boys, and you go out with them, and you kiss them, and you do all the things that other people do, you know, in relationships. And then, like, the deeper you get into it and the more you do it, the more it feels like, oh, this is gross, because you are not a straight person. It literally feels gross, like, oh, yuck. But when you're straight, it feels very differently. So that analogy is perfect for Virgo, because Virgo has to kill themselves in order to be who they are. Are you with me? So when you grow up in Virgo in 4th house, the parent asks you to kill who you are. And the gay thing was just one example, but it could be in any sorts of ways. It could be maybe in this house, we are not like super into education, and you're the person that wants to go get a medical degree. Your family is not going to be like, yay, go be a doctor. No, they're not. They're going to tell you that you're doing too much. They're going to tell you you're being inappropriate. You know, there are people right now whose families, like, are upset with them because they've married somebody from another religious group, or married somebody from another race, married somebody from another country. Like, there's so many rules that some families have that really make it impossible for people to actually be who they are. And when you grew up in a Virgo in 4th house home, then yeah, you have the most of that energy than anybody, you know? And Virgo, the other thing with Virgo in 4th house is that you learn early on that your appearance is very important to your parent, because they become very obsessed with how you look. So they don't just care about how you guys look to the public, they care about your physical appearance. So these children are often very good at dressing themselves. They're often very clean people. They're often very organized people, because they've learned that they are a commodity, they're a tool, they're a thing that the parents takes a lot of great pride in, and they represent something the parent values. So then they begin to treat themselves as the thing that the parent told them that they were. So what ends up happening is that these children can end up looking really good on the outside, like they've got it all together, because on paper everything looks beautiful. But then when you get inside the house, they're very emotionally deprived of love, because they've never really felt love. They've never really felt accepted for who they are, which is a human being with all sorts of complexities, just like the parent. But the parent is so obsessed with, you know, their image, that they're not even tuned into their child emotionally to see, how is my child feeling? That's what a healthy parent would be concerned with. Like, how's my child feeling? How are they dealing with this? How are they coping with this news that they're gay? Like, and obviously I'm not gay. So like, what can I do to assist them with that? What can I do to help them have a soft place to land, so that they're not going through this whole thing by themselves? That is a healthy parent. But a Virgo 4th house parent is not that parent. Far from it. They're way too insecure to actually embrace who they are, and they control everyone and everything in that home, because they think it will make them feel safe, but really it's the mental health issues that they themselves have that are causing them to feel anxious that they're not wanting to address. A lot of Virgo 4th house children do not feel love. They become very good performers. Like, they know what they need to do to make the parent feel good because the parent has their strict rules and regulations. But as far as like them feeling bonded to the parent, they don't. Because think about it, when they were little, the only time the parent will approve of them is if they were doing something the parent liked. If they did something that the parent didn't like, what they got was criticism, what they got was judgment. So then they quickly learn that who they are is fundamentally not acceptable. So then they begin to hide who they really are, and they begin to perform to make the parent happy. Honestly, the only way they can thrive as adults is for them to physically move away from the family home. Because it's not possible to have any semblance of authority over your life when you are living in a Virgo 4th house home until you move far away from your family. Because you're not going to even be able to unpack the trauma of having a childhood where you're essentially rejected for your humanity. Like, that is a deep wound trauma. Like, the fact that since you were born, you've always felt rejected for being human, for having flaws, for making mistakes, for being just like everybody else, which is self-conscious and unsure and, you know, messy sometimes. But Virgo 4th house, like, the parents often act like they are more perfect than they are. Like, they're very damaging parents psychologically, but they seem to think that they're perfect. And just that disconnect for a child, like, when you get to be a grown-up, you get it. Like, okay, my parents, like, are who they are. Like, they have their own issues that have nothing to do with me, and they're just trying to survive, and they did the best they could. Like, all of that, we get it when we get older. But when we're little, though, we don't have that language. We don't have that awareness. We don't have that understanding. So it just feels like a deep rejection of, like, the essence of who you are. So a lot of these people need to go away from the home, far away from the home, and then get in therapy to process that. Because until they've healed that original wound, they will keep looking for perfection in their partners. So they either fall for people that they put on a pedestal because they think those people are perfect, or they fall for people who think that they've got their shit together when they really don't, and they're like fucked up and messed up inside, but the person doesn't know until like the person begins to unpack them, and then they go, oh, there's too much shit here, I don't want to deal with this, bye. So that's generally how their relationships go, because deep down they need to learn how to love themselves because they were never loved. So your mom thinks she's perfect. She has a lot of pride and gets embarrassed easily. Yeah, that's Virgo 4th house. So basically, she was acting out her insecurities in raising you and then casually transfer them to you. That's another thing that Virgo's really good at, because their delusions are about like not being able to see what's in them they don't like. You know, them and Pisces, they have that together. For those of you who are Virgo or Pisces, I don't want to go over the whole video because I really made like a long segment about this conversation, Virgo versus Pisces, that I posted today. So you can go and watch that to get all of those details. But essentially, it is this dichotomy where they're both delusional, but that delusion shows up differently. Where Virgo's delusional about themselves, they think they're perfect and the world is wicked. And then Pisces thinks that the world is a beautiful place and they're the ones who's wicked and imperfect. So, of course, if Virgo 4th house parents thinks that everything they do is perfect, of course. Because why wouldn't it be? You're the problem. It's not them. It's you who is imperfect. It's not them. They're perfect. You're the problem. You're the one not getting with the program. You're the one not keeping with their schedule. You're the one who is insisting on being yourself, who's insisting on being gay when they're clearly telling you that being gay is not how you're going to be the happiest in your life. You're the one who's creating these problems for yourself. That's you. It's not them, it's you. So you have to move away to like make room for you to fully understand like their own like psychology and their own mental health, because obviously they're mentally ill if that's how they think. And there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, they're adults, they can do whatever they want, but it's your responsibility now as an adult to like heal yourself, because the level of love you're going to invite into your world is going to be at the level that you're vibrating at. So if you're vibrating at like low self-love, low self-esteem, low self-worth, guess what you're going to be inviting? Love that is at that level. But if you truly work on healing yourself and loving yourself, then you're going to be vibrating higher, which means you're more likely to attract people that will love you for who you are and not because you're perfect. Because nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, Virgo. Nobody's perfect. You're just as fucked up as the rest of us. Welcome to the shit show.